Good evening. I'm Terry Stallo, and I'm proud to serve as the superintendent of Prior Lake Savage Area Schools. Thank you for joining us this evening to learn more about the upcoming technology levy request on the November 2nd ballot. We want to be sure that our community has all the information that they need about the tech levy request to make an informed vote. For our viewing public tonight, if you have any questions at the end of the presentation, you can contact us, and you can see the address on the screen, input@priorlake-savage.k12.mn.us. Before I begin to talk about the referendum, I do want to spend a couple minutes just sharing some information about our district. Our theme this year, our district theme has been, we are PLSAS, Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, all in. We use this to honor the staff, the parents, the students, and our community members who have been all in during the pandemic and certainly as we continue to navigate the pandemic and recover from it. So thank you for everything that you've done. We know that in a matter of days, in March of 2020, we transformed everything we did, from our teaching and learning to the services that we provided our students and families. And we want to thank our staff and, again, all of you for making that happen. Certainly, technology was an important part of that, and we continue to monitor data on a daily basis to make sure that we have a safe environment for our students and our staff. A huge celebration last year was graduation in person to a full Dan Patch Stadium. This truly was an amazing way to end a very difficult year. And at that point, we were really hopeful that we were going to be able to be coming out of the pandemic and moving into what we would refer to as a more normal school year. Well, that isn't entirely true. We still are dealing with the pandemic, but we certainly are grateful to be in person with students and staff 5 days a week and making sure that our buildings remain safe places to be. In spite of the pandemic, before the pandemic, and certainly after the pandemic, our focus continues to be on our strategic plan and our promise to our community, which is community-driven and board-approved, and that mission is to educate all learners to reach their full potential as contributing and productive members of our ever-changing global community. We're thrilled that even during the pandemic last year, we did collect information and data from our parents and our community at large. And we're really happy that even through that, 9 out of 10 of those who were surveyed believed that our schools are a good value for the investment, and they also rate the quality of our education as good or excellent. Our mission is clear. We focus on every student, preparing them to reach their full potential. Our strategic plan guides all of our work. The 6 strategic directions, which are outlined here, focus the work that we do every single day with our students. And all of these require up-to-date technology in order to make them happen. The school board has considered a technology levy for the last several years. So in the process of studying this over the last year, we wanted to be sure that we were able to get input from stakeholders about what would be needed in a technology plan. So we listened to students and staff and our community and certainly the school board to hear what folks had to say. And you can see some of the key themes that emerged here. Students certainly had some perspectives about what they needed and how they wanted to continue to utilize technology, and staff did as well. You can see here that physical keyboards are just one of the examples of the essential conditions that are needed to continue to build student success. If voters approve this technology funding, we will create a comprehensive plan to account for these essential conditions while maintaining and enhancing our district's STEM focus. Again, environmental education, science, technology, engineering, and math. In addition, it's really important that we have the funds for a 10-year replacement cycle, should, again, this be. Additionally, we asked community members some other questions, and while the majority of our community views technology as absolutely essential to our education, the majority of the people also tell us that there's room for improvement, that they rate our technology as good and not excellent. And we want to be sure that we provide excellence in education and excellence in everything that we do. And in order for that to happen, we want to be sure that we have excellent resources. In addition to examining the role of technology in learning, we also looked at our finances. First, I want to talk just a little bit about state funding. All school districts rely heavily on state funding to provide education, and for us, it's to our 8,850 students from preschool through grade 12. Well, the state has periodically made investments in education, which is really the bread and butter of our funding. This has not kept pace with inflation for almost 20 years, resulting in the funding gap that you see here. If the money on the formula, and that's oftentimes how we hear that, if it had kept pace with inflation, we would have received $5 million alone last year. Unfortunately, the projections show that this gap will continue. Additional pressures that we have on our budget are some critical state-mandated programs to support student needs, which cost far more than the money that we receive to provide those. I also want to talk just a little bit about COVID dollars. You might have heard that school districts received some relief and some funding to assist through the pandemic, and we certainly are grateful for that funding. But I also want to be really clear that with that funding came requirements of how we spend it, and we needed to spend it on those expenditures that were a result of COVID. The other thing that's really important to remember is those COVID relief dollars are one-time dollars. It's one-time funding. So it will not help us with our long-term budget sustainability or technology needs. It's also really important to remember that prior to the pandemic, we were not a one-to-one district, meaning one device to one student. We were a one-to-one 8th grade through 12th grade. When the pandemic hit, our technology department with staff across the district had to ensure that they took apart every Chromebook cart that we had, every iPad cart that we had, and it collected other devices that we had in the district in order to ensure that we had a one-to-one kindergarten through 12th grade so that students could learn in distance learning and in hybrid learning. We currently spend about $3.5 million on technology needs, but without a dedicated source of funding, such as a technology levy, those dollars all come from our operating budget. Operating budgets are what schools use to pay for just about everything: teachers, textbooks, transportation, school support staff, and utilities, for example. It means that our technology needs compete with all of the other needs that we have across the district. The combined result of these financial pressures has resulted in a $5 million of budget adjustments over the last 2 years. We had $3 million in budget adjustments 2 years ago, $2 million last year. And in order to maintain the fund balance policy that the board has set, with several unknowns at this point, we don't know exactly what our enrollment will end up being and some other factors, but looking at a potential for additional adjustments this year. State law allows for school districts to ask voters to approve a dedicated source of funding for technology called the Capital Projects Levy for Technology, or a technology levy. As you can see on this chart, we are one of the only comparable and neighboring school districts without this locally approved funding. This chart shows currently the districts we compare to have anywhere from $2.7 million annually for a tech levy to more than $8 million in technology funding per year. And many districts have received these year after year after year. So not only do these districts have a dedicated funding for technology, this also frees up their general fund or their operating fund for those other needs for students' education. Based on our technology needs and on our financial realities, we have a request for a technology levy on the November 2nd, 2021 ballot. If approved by our community, it would provide $3.5 million per year for 10 years. And the tax impact on this levy would be less than $17 per month for the average homeowner. Dedicated funding allows for additional dollars for technology and will allow us to spend critical dollars on other student and classroom needs, that dedicated piece of funding, which is so important. Technology levies would enable us to address learning, safety, and support needs. Specifically, we'd be able to provide all students and staff with devices to meet their needs, give us flexibility to personalize learning through emerging technologies in our classroom and through much needed online resources, improve our building's security and safety with things like radios, surveillance cameras, and secure entrances, increase our technology support staff so that they can be responsive to serve the many needs that our staff and our students have, and maintain the infrastructure that is so critical to making sure that our technology is properly functioning. Technology helps students learn at their own pace and enables teachers to individualize learning for our students. It helps to monitor student learning and get instant feedback on exams and other projects. Technology helps keep students engaged in their learning, and students can communicate with experts in the field, even with an astronaut aboard the International Space Station, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner on your screen. We communicate with families through technology, and students use technology for research, to create projects, to document their work, and to collaborate with other students and with their teachers. Up-to-date technology helps prepare students for their future and is key to ensuring our students have connection to anytime, anywhere learning. Voters need to understand the consequences of a successful or a failed referendum vote. So if voters approve our request in November, these are some of the specific benefits for the 3 areas that we've outlined. In terms of learning, making sure again that we have equitable access to instructional technology for our students and staff, and that we have a 4-year replacement cycle. Access to the software that is needed and the curricular resources, as well as those systems that help with communication. In terms of safety, we want to make sure that we're able to maintain, sustain, some of the information that we shared earlier with you. And in terms of support, we want to make sure that we have sustainable funding for the infrastructure that's needed, as well as for the staffing that's needed. Likewise, if voters do not approve our request in November, there are negative consequences that'll take place. We would have fewer devices for students and staff, and our security systems and some of the equipment would become outdated. Some of our aging audio and video classroom equipment, such as our smart boards, would not be updated or replaced. And our schools would have limited technology support to fix student and staff devices. Again, we would have ongoing pressure to our general fund, resulting in potential. So again, in summary, we are requesting on the ballot a $3.5 million a year, a 10-year technology levy request on the November 2nd, 2021 ballot. Those funds will be used in multiple ways for learning, for safety, and for support. And the tax impact will be just short of $17 per month on an average homeowner. We have a lot of information on our website, so we welcome people to look at our website, make sure that you have the information that you need. We've got videos on there. We continue to add to our frequently asked questions as we get questions from our community. Again, our role is to make sure that the community has factual information about this levy request so that they can make an informed decision. Before I take questions, I would like to just show a quick 3-minute video that outlines a little bit more of the information that I just shared.
The reason why I love working for Prior Lake Savage Area Schools is that it's always a student-first focus.
I've lived here over 20 years. I love this community.
It's really the people who are here that make it home.
On November 2nd, Prior Lake Savage Area School District residents will be asked to vote on a 10-year, $3.5 million per year technology levy funding request for our schools. This levy would help provide our students and staff with the tools and support they need to maximize classroom learning, keep technology infrastructure up to date, and enhance school safety and security.
Current state of technology in our district is varied. We have a number of aging devices for students K through 12. We tried to maintain a replacement plan, but with the current funding in place, that's not always the case.
And as devices and systems become older, reliability decreases. It creates a lot of frustration for both teachers and students.
Funding would support learning in the classroom by supplying up-to-date devices for all students and staff, provide instructional software and resources, upgrade and maintain classroom equipment, and enhance communications with our students and families.
Technology has definitely transformed the way I teach. It helps me to engage my students.
2 of the 5 pieces gave you.
It's teaching them not only the academic skills that I'm assigning, but a lot of social skills and problem solving and troubleshooting.
Clearly, our students are our future workforce, and we want to make sure that we are shaping them for what they need to know coming out of school.
The levy would also provide funding for critical school safety and security systems, as well as crisis management.
It is our job to provide a safe, secure learning environment for all students. A lot of these systems and services are technology related, they are computer based, and there's a cost associated with that.
In addition, the levy would provide funding to bolster the district's technology staff and infrastructure.
We currently have 2 employees that are maintaining 8,000 mobile devices. As new technologies emerge and are rolled out, we need to make sure that we have enough PD for our teachers and our support staff so that they can use this equipment as efficiently and effectively as possible.
If the levy is approved, the tax impact would be less than $17 per month for the average homeowner. If the referendum does not pass, there would be continued pressure on the general operating budget, competing for dollars required for other classroom and school needs. The resulting cuts would be felt district-wide and negatively impact our ability to provide devices for all students, keep our security equipment updated, provide timely tech support to students and staff, and maintain and update our staff training and technology infrastructures.
These students are learning and growing and changing, and providing them technology gives them the chance to grow some of these lifelong skills that are going to influence them throughout the rest of their life.
Please learn more about the referendum and remember to vote on or before November 2nd.
And I want to thank you for viewing this evening. I know Christy's monitoring online to see if there's any questions, but we're happy to take any questions if you have. I have Marcus Malazzo, our Director of Technology, with me this evening, Julie Sink, our Executive Director of Business Services, Dan Edwards, our Director of Technology, or of Teaching and Learning, Innovation, and Achievement. And there's also some board members that are here, so we'd be happy to take any questions. I'll let Christy read the question that's coming in from online.
The question online is, I believe the most recent district-wide reading proficiency was 58%. How would tech levy increase children's reading proficiency?
Well, I think that, anytime we're in the classrooms and we're looking at how we engage students, there's a variety both of instructional strategies as well as instructional resources that we use both in our core curriculum and in the interventions and the enrichments that we use. So a variety of curricular kinds of things would certainly help with that, and the engagement, the way students can continue to personalize their learning and through a standards-based array of activities would certainly be a part of that as well. Dan, is there anything else that you would add to that? I think we need you on the mic.
We actually just recently adopted a couple of new curriculums at the secondary level, at the high school level. Yes, at the high school level, we are using more of an online resource to help support students and individualize student and meet them where they're at with reading and writing components. And also we've have curriculum at the elementary level that we've recently adopted, and as we move forward, continuing to want to be able to make sure that that curriculum stays current in best practices and resources available to our students. So again, to also emphasize the earlier points made.
I'm going to add one other thing. As I look at, probably one of the things that's changed the most in education in the last 10 years is the assessments and the way that we have real-time data. We screen kids. We have multiple ways to use assessments. FastBridge is one of the, we were doing NWEA MAP testing. Last year we instituted FastBridge. Several of our leaders and teachers thought that that was even a better way to assess students, so we do fall screening for all students. I actually was in 2 buildings today where I talked to principals about the data days that classroom teachers come together using that assessment data that is all compiled, multiple graphs. They're able to see not only where each student is aligned to standards, but there's also interventions that then show what would be the most helpful to students. So that assessment, real-time assessment, multiple times a year. Again, we don't wait just for those MCAs. And I think the other thing that's really important for our public to know about the MCA results from last year is we had a significant lower participation rate during the pandemic. We had many more families opt out of taking that test. So we really rely on common assessments in our curriculum for students as well as the FastBridge data that we're using. I also just want to share, as long as I have an opportunity to talk about assessment, I just talked a little bit about the academic ways that we assess where students are. We know the importance of social and emotional learning, and we also have assessments that we're able to use to really get a feel for where students are, how they're feeling. Are they feeling a sense of belonging? Are they feeling a sense of safety? Because we know that kids need to feel safe and be in a safe environment in order for them to learn. Yes. Yeah, thank you. So I'm not sure if those of you on screen heard, but one of the parents here was just talking about the importance of getting results back sooner because assessments were taken on tests as well. I do also want to share the flip side of that with technology is that I also know that there was one of our elementary buildings that because we are utilizing technology and want to get the real-time data as quickly as we can, and that's the way that we use it. We had trouble with technology one of the days of the test. And I think that speaks specifically to the infrastructure supports and making sure that we have what we need with that. Yes. The question that came was, are these assessments able to be taken on Chromebooks as well as iPads, or is it just on Chromebooks? And they are web-based, so they're able to take place on both of them. And you know, I know you didn't ask this question, but I'll go ahead and share a little bit. As we were deploying every device that we had in March of 2020 to make sure we could get to the one-to-one, and Marcus, I'll maybe let you speak to this because I know you have recently. We had to make some decisions. We didn't have enough iPads for all students, so we took apart the Chromebook carts as well as the iPad carts and made some decisions about who would have what devices. And I don't know if there's anything that you want to share, both positively and perhaps some areas of improvement with that. Thanks, Mark.
Evening, everyone. As Dr. Stalo mentioned, when we got the governor's announcement that we had to pivot and we had 2 weeks to make sure that we had a device for every student, we had to pull apart every Chromebook and iPad cart that we had in the district. At that time, we were an 8-12 one-to-one district with iPads for those students, and then it was a cart model with a 2-to-1 ratio, 7. So in that time, we took apart the carts and made sure that every student had a device enabled in order to facilitate distance learning. We also asked teachers to turn in their iPads so that we had additional devices to give to students. And at that time, our current deployment is a K1 iPads, 2 through 5 Chromebooks, and then 6 through 12 iPads. So we got the devices out as quickly as we could. We know that a Chromebook in the hands of a second grader may not be ideal for a number of reasons, but the urgency to get a student a device so that they were connected, so that they were enabled distance learning was very important. So as we plan forward, and if it's voter approved, we will have a 10-year comprehensive plan. We will seek feedback from students, staff, community members on what type of devices at what grade levels is the best fit for our district. So we know we have some challenges. One of the pluses of a Chromebook is it does have a physical keyboard. So what we're hearing from the 6 through 12 students is that we have an iPad, it's an up-to-date iPad, but I don't have a physical keyboard, so it's really hard to do document creation with the onboard or on-screen keyboard. So we have challenges regardless of what kind of device we have deployed to our students.
Thank you very much, Marcus. There was another question that came in. I'll let Christy read it to make sure, or I guess as long as I have Christy's glasses, I can read it. What are the plans for the general operating fund relief if the levy were to pass? So as we said, the board made a decision to go out for a technology levy, could have made a decision to go out for an increase in operating levy as well, and that's what some districts have also done. Because we don't have that dedicated stream for technology, the board decided that that was the wisest way to go at this time, and we collected input from stakeholders, which really helped us land on that, or helped the board land on that amount of $3.5 million. Our community survey said that was about the amount that it looked like our community would support. So what we would do is, if this were to be successful, we would use a portion of that, of those funds, and still use some of our general funds for technology. What we would do with the relief is we would look at all of those other competing interests. Primarily, we'd look at staffing. We would look at curriculum needs, because we know that as we've had to make adjustments in the last couple of years, those are some of the things that we've really had to focus on, and that would certainly help us be able to deliver the continued excellent education that our students in our community deserve. Other information, those of you who are here think it would be important to share with our community?
Crisis position that was mentioned on the web page. I think it said if the levy doesn't pass that we are not able to employ a crisis management coordinator.
Yeah, so right now, Joel McCall, did we hear that question?
Yep.
Perfect. Right now, Joel McCall, who's a retired fire chief from Savage, he works with us on a very part-time basis, and I believe that's paid for out of our Safe Schools Fund. So he's really helped us to make sure that we've continued, especially with our standard reunification method, with our incident command model, with some of those things. He's really helped to coordinate some of that, coordinate some of our building tabletop exercises and those kinds of things. So that would be one of the positions that we'd need to look at to say, do we have funding for that or not? The other thing in terms of the safety portions of this, last year we went through a process where we looked at all of the radios that we use across the district, and it's really important. Whether it's students being outside at their class, out at recess, or whether there would be a horrific event here, it's really important that we have radios that can talk to each other, that can talk to the district office, that can talk to our county. And what we saw is we had some radios that were not up to the standard that we needed. So went through a process and purchased new radios. They're very expensive. We don't have the number that we had previously, and that's something that buildings are continuing to use funds we're trying to support at the district level, but making sure that we have those kinds of things for safety. So just one example of that, but that was what we were referencing. Thanks for the question. Yes, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, I think should bring the mic over to her? We'll mic you up.
I think, can you explain when we had a referendum a couple of years ago and we passed that one and the money that went toward that, what is the difference between what that paid for and what this will pay for?
Excellent. I am going to start that, and then I know that Julie Sink is going to talk even with greater detail. I do want to share something because I have said this in previous presentations as well. If you recall, in May of 2016, that was the first time we went out for the bond. Bonds are for building, but we also had a second question on there that was for a capital projects levy for a technology levy request. And as you recall, that was not approved that year by our voters. So what we had to do is go back, collect information from our stakeholders, and really learn why that didn't pass and what needed to be changed in order for it to be something that the community could support. So at that time, we did take off the technology request. That doesn't mean the technology needs went away. But we came back with the request for the bond referendum, which was for the buildings, the renovations. So Hamilton Ridge, Bridges ALC, the renovations for almost every other district or every other building as well, especially a significant addition to the high school. So I'm going to let Julie take it from here to talk a little bit more about the difference between what that bond was, that referendum, and this technology levy. Thanks, Julie.
So you're really talking about the operating part of that. So we had two questions, and the operating portion of it really paid for the operating of our buildings. So it was additional what we needed for custodial help at our new buildings, or the expanded buildings. Utility costs, that money for that operating went to operate the building, the new buildings and the expanded spaces at all of our buildings. So that's when we created that list of all the things that we needed, it was for that reason. It really wasn't anything for over and above that. So additional utility costs for Hamilton Ridge, the ALC, the high school, which added significant amount of additional square feet. And like I said, we needed staff for some of those buildings. We needed additional custodial. We needed all of those different kinds of staffing needs, and that's what that money went for.
Julie, I don't see any more questions from the from online. Any other questions here?
I was just going to make a comment as I'm a board member, but also...
I think, why don't we have you come up, Michael, if you don't mind, just so you're also on camera.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment for the people who are here and the people who might be listening online. I'm currently a board member. I've been a parent in this district. I have two who are now in college, one who's still in high school, have been in the district since early childhood all the way through, and I'm an aunt to 4 students in the district and a volunteer. And so I've seen kind of the district operations and curriculum and grow throughout the years from different perspectives. And as a parent this time around, I'm getting asked a lot of questions about things that people are seeing online. They don't know where to get the facts, where to get the right information. And I will confess that in the most recent referendum ask, about a month out before the vote, I was sent some emails with information by a group who was listing all of these facts about the district that I found almost a little too extreme to possibly be true, and I was confused. And so I hadn't been involved in the referendum effort at that point. I was just a parent who was planning to go and vote. And so I actually made an appointment and came into the district office. I met with the director of communications, the business director, Julie Sink. I met with the superintendent and other staff. And I literally took this list of questions, went through every single one to get answers. And it was extremely helpful. And I shared that information with other people. So I would just like to say to those of you who are not maybe feeling well informed enough, if you have questions or if you don't know what you're seeing online or in neighborhood groups is accurate, your questions will be answered. Please come directly to the district or reach out to a board member and get that information. I would also like to say that having been through several elections now in this community in Minnesota, November 2nd in Minnesota can be really tricky. There's a chance we could have an ice storm. There's a chance we could have a snowstorm. I have had kids get sick on voting day, and then you just don't get down there. This vote is really important. I'm not going to advocate one way or the other, but we want all your voices to be heard. Early voting is an option. Please take care of that as well.
Well, if there are no other questions, again, I want to thank those of you who came in tonight for the information session. I want to thank those of you that are online listening. As Michael just said, we're happy to answer questions. Email your questions in, come in and make appointments. We're happy to answer questions. Our role is to ensure that you have the factual information that is needed to make an informed decision and vote. So with that, have a great rest of the night. Thank you again.